All right, so today we'll be talking about Kali Linux. Talking about Kali Linux, which is one of the important tools that you need to know how to use as a cybersecurity personnel. So, what is Kali Linux? Now, Kali Linux is a Debian-based Linux distribution aimed at advanced penetration testing and security auditing. It comes preloaded with hundreds of tools that are used for previous information security tasks, such as penetration testing, security research, computer forensics, and reverse engineering. Now, Kali Linux comes with a lot of tools that we use for penetration testing, which you know as ethical hacking. Now, unlike the Windows operating system, the Kali Linux is a Debian-based Linux distribution. It comes with lots of tools that can be used for various security testing and security research. So first, let me just show you the interface, because I said today we'll be mixing theory together with practical so that we can follow up easily. So now, if you follow the video I sent, I think today, once you downloaded your Kali file and you've extracted it, so once you just do is you come to your virtual machine. Once you've installed your virtual machine, then you go to open a virtual machine. Now you look for the file that you extracted. On my part, I'm making use of Debian. So you see the file, then you open the file. Once you open the file, you should have something like this. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to edit the virtual machine that you would be using. Now, when you come here, the memory I assigned here is 4 gig. Now, depending on your system's RAM, for me now, I have a 16 gig RAM. So if I give my Kali Linux 4 gig, it's not too much. But the least you should give, you see, recommended memory is 2 gig. Then your processor can leave it with 4. Then your hard disk space also, depending on the space you have on your system, will determine what you should assign. So at least 60 gig is what you should assign to your Kali Linux. Then the other settings, you can leave the other settings like that. Then you continue it. Then after that, you just click on play. And you should have your virtual machine, your Kali running. Now, a lot of people don't really understand what this virtual machine is all about. Now, the virtual machine is just for you to be able to make use of other operating systems on your device without having to use dual booting. Now, what is dual booting? Dual booting is when you're trying to log into your Windows, but instead of logging into Windows, you log into another operating system. You understand? That's what they call dual booting. So this enables you to be able to perform your tests without actually breaking your Windows, or if you're using a Mac or any operating system you're using on your initial Windows. So it enables you to be able to actually perform tests that even if anything should break on your virtual machine, it will not affect your main machine. So it's just like having another operating system on your operating system. That is what the virtual machine is actually all about. Because on this virtual machine, you can also install another Windows on it, and you can do an undo on that Windows, and it will not affect your main machine, which is your main Windows. Okay, that's about that. Then let me log in into the account first. So the file system structure. Now, the way the Kali Linux file system is actually structured, now you have this slash, which is representing the root, directory. That is, the root directory is the top level directory that contains all other directories and files. So directories is just like saying your folders. You have your file folder, you have your documents folder, all those things. Now, the root directory is the one that is like a mother to all the other directories. Then you have the bin. This is essentially user binary. That is where some basic binaries where the binaries for some basic commands are actually stored in your Kali Linux is the bin. Then we have the boot. That is where your boot up files, where your boot up configurations are stored. Then we have the device files also. We have the etc. This is where some configuration files are stored, like your password, your network interfaces, and some other configuration. Then you have the home directory, that is your home directory, just like then the root directory. Then you also have the run, which is a run data for processes, that is what stores your running processes. Then you also have the sbin. You have the TMP, which is the temporary files, and you have the user files also. Then you have the variable data. This VAR is where your logs are being saved. That is when you log into your system, when you log out, everything you try to do, probably you delete a file, you move a file, all those things known as logs. So it is saved on the VAR directory. So when you log into your Kali Linux, just like the way you have just like your Windows, this is what you would have, like your normal desktop interface. Then what's the other time? If I go to the folders, this is the file system of the Kali Linux. It's just like your normal Windows system. So I don't really think I need to explain much of this. So the Kali Linux is both GUI and CLI based. What is GUI? GUI means graphic interface, while CLI means command line interface. So what did I mean by graphics user interface? Like the way I'm interacting with the graphics now, I can click on anything I want is the graphics user interface. Why the command line interface, just like you have your command prompts, on your Windows, is the command line. So the CLI is the command line interface, just like you have your command prompts on the Windows. So for today, we'll be making more use of the command line. So now basic terminal commands. Now we have the L is to list the contents of a directory. We have the CD, which is to change the contents to another directory. We have PWD, which means print current working directory. Then we have mkdir. Mkdir means to create a new directory or to create a new folder. Now, rm means to delete a file. Then rm minus r means to delete recursively. Then we have cp. cp is to copy. We have mv is to move. Now we have sudo. Now this executes command as a super user, that is, gives the user root privileges. I would explain that when I use the command. Then we have touch. Now touch is to create new empty file. To create new empty file or update the timestamp of an existing file. Then we have cat. Now cat displays the contents of a file. Now if you want to display the content of a file, make use of cat. Now we have nano. Nano opens a simple command line text editor. Just like you have your text editor on your Windows, the same thing, that is what Nano is all about. Then Vim is like a powerful text editor compared to Nano. Then we have history. History is to check the list of previous commands that you have made use of. Then we have clear. Clear is to clear your commands if you want to clear off the command. Then we have echo. Now this outputs a variable to the screen. So echo is just to output whatever command you give it or whatever variable you give it. It's to output that to the screen. Then we have exit. Now this one closes the current terminal session or script. Now we have man. Man stands for manual. Now if you want to know what a command, what a software, the commands of a software or an application that you installed, you use the man command. So let's do some check on that. So if I open up my terminal, the first one is the list, right? Which is the ls. You see, ls lists all the directories that I have. That is what ls is for. Then we have pwd. Now pwd is to tell me the directory that I am actually working on presently. That is what the pwd is for. Then we have cd. cd is to change directory. So let's assume I want to change directory to downloads. Let's say downloads. And you see it is already in downloads, which means if I list now, I'll be listing things that are under files that are under my download. That is what the cd command. So if I print working directory now, pwd, it will tell me that I'm working under the downloads directory. Now, another thing about the Kali Linux terminal is that it is case sensitive in the sense that if you don't type the exact case, it will not respond. For instance, now if I go back now with just cd, let's say I want to change directory to documents and I use small letter D. Now it will tell me that there's no such tree or file because I made use of small letter. Because if you see the document here, it starts with a capital letter. So if I use a capital letter now, so cd documents, can you see it has changed directory into document? So if I list now, it will list out all the files that you have there. Then another command you talked about, okay, is cat. Cat is for you just to list, if you want to list what is inside a file. So the first thing we do is let's create a directory. So if I go back now, to create a directory is mkdir. So let's just name it new tests, and enter. So if I list now, we discover that the directory new test has been created. So if I change directory into new test now, if I change directory into new test, it means everything I'm doing now is under new test. So now let us create a file. Now to create a file is use the command touch. Touch. So let's say new file. Say new file 1. Now you discover that what I'm using to give the command is actually space. So it's also space sensitive. If you put a space in between this and you don't quote it up, for it to tell it that you are trying to say it's 1, it will not run that command because it is space sensitive also. So instead of using space, you can decide to use underscore. You can decide to use underscore, so .txt. Now, if I list now, you discover that I have created a file. Now, if I want to type, let's assume I want to just create something inside this file now. So I'll use the nano. I use nano. Now, can you see it has opened a command, a text editor. So if I just say, if I just say this, then to edit, I'll just use Control X. I'll press type Y, that is I want to save, then enter. So now that's what I typed now has actually saved into this file. Now, if I want to show what I typed into this file, and I want to actually open the file, that is where the command cat now comes in. So cat new file. Now you see that it has shown me what I typed into that file. That is what the cat is for. Now, to delete a file and delete a directory is actually different, because to delete a file, we use the command rm. That is to remove, to delete a file. So if I say rm new file now, it has actually deleted the file. So let us list now. You see that if I list now, nothing is showing again. So let me go back to my home directory so that we can delete a directory. But if I list now, so let us delete this new test directory now. Now, to delete a directory is different from deleting a file. You know, to delete a file was rm. Now, to delete a directory, use rmdir, then the name of the directory. If I list again now, you discover that the directory is no longer there. So those are some of the basic commands. Let me see, which other command did I mention of there? So, okay, the sudo, I've used touch. We've not used echo. Okay, history and the man, all right. So let us use, now what touch does is, what echo does is just to echo a particular string of text that you commanded. So if I say echo, so if I say echo this now, it will just echo it out for me. Now I can also use echo to actually create a file, a text file. So if I say echo, so now I put something like this, then the file I want to create. So let's say text.txt. So if I list now, you discover that it has created the new text.txt file. So if I cut now, let me cut it now. So if I cut it now, can you see that it's what I typed is actually inside the file. Now, if I want to add other things to that file, let's say I want to say echo. Now, if I use this same thing, let's say I want to put it into that same new text.txt. Now, if I allow this command now, what will happen is that my name is Anthony that I put inside the file before, it will change it to this is a training for Kali. But if I don't want it to actually change it, I don't want it to overwrite. I want it to add the new thing I'm putting. I can just add a double of this. Then if I say enter, now let us cut the new text. Okay. Can you see now that I did not delete that one? But if I made it only one, it would have actually deleted and replaced it with this. Now, what I'm using to complete my my command, for instance, now let's say I want to cut new text. Now I can just use you can just use your tab to complete it. If there are other things that probably you typed NE and the other things that is starting with NE, it will give you options that there are other things starting with NE. So you might probably need to move a little bit forward for you to override other things that are starting with those texts that you've typed before you use your tab. You get that? So let me just do this. Then the clear is to clear everything, right? Then history is to check if you want to check the commands that you have previously used. That is history. And you could also use your arrow up and arrow down to go through the commands that you have previously used. That is also another way to go about it. Then the sudo, what sudo means is that if you are not the root user, if you are not, for instance, now in the Windows operating system, you discover that if you want to install some apps, at times it tells you to accept the administrator mode. That is, if you are not an administrator, it will not install those applications. Now, what sudo does is that sudo gives you the privilege to be able to actually perform the rights of a root user. Probably after when we create a user, you would see what sudo does. Let's continue first. All right, so we have user management, that is how to create a user on Kali Linux. So we have the add user, then the username you want to use. So if you want to change the password, so this is the command password username, that is change password. They want to give the user sudo rights. This is the command to actually give the sudo rights. Then who am I helps you to check who you are logged in as at that particular moment. Then ID. ID is for you to check if an account actually exists or has been created. Then groups, that is if you want to put a user in a particular group. Then if you want to delete a user, you use tell user. So let's try that. I think was there a command I did not use in the previous one? So we use echo, we use history. Okay, the man command, right? So let's try and make use of that. So what the man command does is that, for instance, now if I have I have tools like, we have tools like Nmap, right? We have tools like Nmap. Now I want to check the command or the parameters that I can use with that software Nmap. Or if you download the software and you don't really know the tools or you don't know the parameters, what do I mean by parameters? Parameters are just the extension of your commands that you assign to your command. So let's say for the Nmap now, I want to check the commands on Nmap. I can say man Nmap. Now you can see to give me a description of the tool, and we also give me commands that I can use with that particular software. So MAN stands for manual. So that is what that does. Then we want to add a user. So now to add user, we say add user. So let's use let's just say training. So add user training. If I press enter, okay, only roots can add user. Can you see what it? If I use sudo now and I try the same command again, and I try the same command again, can you see that it is allowing me to perform that task? That is what the sudo is used for. That is, it gives you a root privilege to be able to perform some privileges that the root user can actually perform. So most times, if your command is telling you that you are not permission denied, you have to make use of sudo before that command could actually work. So let us set a password for this. Let me say training. Now, if you are typing the password, it will not show, so don't think you're not doing anything. Putting the password. Okay, I think the password is too simple. All right. So I've put in the password. Okay, now it's telling me to set a password for the account I'm creating. Now, because I made use of sudo the other time, now it is this password that it asks for here is the password for this account that I am logged in as. That is the password it asks for. So now it is telling me to set a new password for the user I'm trying to create. So let's set a password. Telling me to retype. All right, so full name, you can decide to, let's say full name. Let me just say, um, say time. Number, no need. Work number, phone, that one doesn't need. Then you type Y, then it has created the user. For us to know if the user has been created, you can use list /home. You can use list, then slash, then home. You'll be able to see all the users that have been created. Can you see the one we just created, which is the training user? Now, for you to also know the accounts exist, you can use ID. Now, if it gives you these informations, that is UID stands for, I think user. So this is user ID. Then this is the group ID. GID stands for group identification number. So if it gives you this information, it means that account actually exists. So the next command now is to give this So let's try to log in as that username now. So I can, let's switch accounts. So let me switch user now. And let's try to log in as that. So can you see now that we have created a user? So let's see. Can you see now that the user has been created? Can you see that the interface is different from the initial interface that was in the user I logged in as previously? So this is telling you that a new user has logged in. So let us try. Let us try some commands. So now if I say I want to add user with this, I want to add user with this account. So let's say new user. Now it's telling me that only root may add user. Now let's make use of sudo and see. Uh, Now can you see something? Training is not in the sudo as. That's what I just wanted you to see. You know, even the fact that you can use sudo, the user must be added to the sudo as group before the user or before this user will be able to use the sudo command to give it root privilege. You get, this is what I wanted to show you, that even if I try to perform it with sudo, because this particular user is not in the sudo as group, then it will not have permission to do that. Now from this user now, I could actually log in into another account. So the command to log in for that is just su switch user. I could log in into another account that has sudo usage. So now this is another account that I'm logging out. So this account now, it's as if I have logged in into this particular account. So now let us check the command for giving a user a pseudo privilege. Now the command is user mode -ag, then sudo, then the username. So ag now is an example of a parameter that you need to add to this command. So if I go in here now, I can say man. Let's check some of the commands that are under user mode. So now you see the parameters that are under user mode. Let's check for that A. You see the G, this is what G does. The capital letter G that you saw, adds it to a group. Then the A, where is A? Now this is what the A does. Add the user to a supplementary group. That is what the A does. So we are combining the A and the capital letter. Can you see that a lowercase g has its own command and uppercase G, for you to know that when it comes to upper and lower case, it is actually very sensitive on Kali, because a lower case could mean something else and uppercase could mean something else. So let me try to give that user a pseudo privilege. Now I could, okay, let me just log in so that I won't confuse some people. Let me switch user back to my initial user. So I'm back to the initial user. So we want to give the user we created a sudo, right? So user mode, I think -a g, then sudo, then the username. The username is training. Let's enter. Permission denied. The reason why permission is denied because even me myself, I did not make use of sudo. And because I'm not logged in as a root user, if I log in as a root user, I think I did not get it. No, wait. I've forgotten the password for that. Now, there's also a way you can actually, there's a way you can actually make your the user have a privilege right without needing sudo, but we'll be doing that one later. So now I need to just use sudo to user mode. Okay. See, now that user has been added to the sudoers group. Now, for you to know that, let us try again. Let us switch user to that user. So as if we are loading in as a user now. So let us try to use that user to create another user, just like we did the other time. So if we say user, add user, new user. Can you see now that it now has that permission to make use of the sudo command? So let me cancel this. So let's keep it going. Then to remove the user, we use the command delete del user. So if you want to remove the user, we use the command del user. So let us remove the user that was created. So let me use sudo. So now if we check now, well now let us check the ID of the user. I think I delete the user. Okay, the user is being used. That is why it is not okay. The user is being used. That is why it is not removed. All right. So so that we won't waste most of our time, let us just create another user and we remove the user because I need to log out that user so that so now let's try to delete the user now. So as you can see, user has been removed. So if I try to ID the user now, you discover that it's telling me no such user. Oh, I forgot to actually ID it before deleting it. If I had checked the ID, it would have given me this kind of information. So that's that about adding a user and deleting a user, then giving your user sudo, giving your user sudo privilege. All right, let's continue. Okay. Now the file permissions and access control. Now, role file permissions controls who can read, write, or execute files, crucial for maintaining security. Now, just like the Windows file permissions, in the Linux too, you have file permissions whereby you can determine who can read a file, who can write, and who can execute that file. So what read means is just that what I am doing now, being able to read this particular PDF file, it means I have a read permission to read this file. Now, if I can edit this particular, whether it's a Word document or any document, if I can change, even if it's the name, it means I have a write privilege. Now, if I can execute, probably the file has a command in it that is executable, or if it is like an installed app, maybe I want to install an application, or on the Windows like a .exe file, you want to install an application. If you are able to carry out that installation as that user, it means you also have the execute permission. So a user could have a read permission without having a write and execute permission. A user could have a write permission without having read and execute permission, like that. So you could have different permissions for your files. Now, the three types of permission, we have the read, which stands for R. We have the write, which stands for W. Then we have the execute, which stands for X. Now, the contents, the view file contents, the value for read is 4. Now, I will show you what that is used for. Now, the value for write is 2, and the value for execute is 1. All right. So let us check the calculation. Let me show you. Okay. Okay, let me just explain what is here. Now, if you want to change the permission of a file, we use the command chmod, which means change mode. Now, if you want to change the mode of a file, you can either make use of the numbering method, the numeric method, or the numeric mode, or the symbolic mode. Now, how do you calculate the numeric mode? First, let me show you what that's okay, let's explain. If you look at this place now, it says we have owner, we have group, and we have others. So let me show you what that means here in the Kali. So let's say I list -LA. Now, if you look at something, if you look at this file now, where is the file we created? Okay, let's use this new text.txt file. Now, if you look at this file now, you will discover that, let me look for one that is full. Okay. Now look at something like this now. When you see D starting it, it means it is a directory. Now, when you see this dash starting it, it means it is a file and not a directory. Now, for this directory now, if you look at something here, we have rwx, we have r-x, and we also have r-x. Now, the dash here, what is missing there? It is the write. Now, this first rwx means read, write, and execute. Now, this is for the owner. That is the person that created this file, or the person that created this directory is this first page. That means for this particular directory now, the owner has a read, write, and execute. Then this second one is for the group. That is the group that this file is under. Everybody on that group only have a read and execute without write permission. Now, for this one, with others means any other user you have has only read and execute permission to this particular directory. So how you change how do you now change the permission to a particular file? So let us do the calculation. I'm coming. Now, we want to talk about the calculation of the file permission now, right? So R, we said R is 4, right? R is 4. Read, write is 2. While execute is 1, right? Now, how do you calculate this? You know, for the owner, let me represent, okay, let's say owner. We had RWX, right? We had RWX. For group, for group, for the group, we had RWX also. Then for others, we also have RWX. Now, what this means is that, you know, the RWX we saw, all this owner, group, and others was not included. So imagine it's not there. Do you understand? I'm just putting it for you to understand. So this first part means the owner, the second part means group, and the third part means others. So now this kind of command now means for the owner, we add 4, which is right, plus 2, which is right, sorry, plus 1, which is, so this will give us 7, right? So that means this particular file now, this is 7, this is 7, this is 7. So if I say change mode 777, it means the first one, which is the first 7, is the owner, that is change the permission to 777, which means they have full permission, right? Read, write, and execute. But if I now say 4 plus, let's say we don't have 4 plus nothing here, plus 1. You know, this will give me 5, right? That means I have only read and execute permission here. So if I say change chmod now 75, 75 means I have, for the group, I have executed, removed the write permission. It will now be only read and execute. Then for the last one, let's say I want to change it to, I don't want it to be full, I don't want it to be 7. Let's say I want it to give it only read permission. That means I have 4 plus nothing here, plus nothing here, which will give me 4, right? So that means if I say chmod 754, it means I am saying that particular file should have, the owner should have full permission. This one read and write, while this one should have only read permission. I put this now to a particular file. If I use this now for a particular file, any file I set this command to, it will give them this kind of permission. So let's try this on a particular file. So let's say, which file should we use? This new text. Okay, let's use this new text file. All right. So if I say change mode 754, then new text file. Is it new text? Yeah, new text.txt. Enter. Now let me check the file permission now. So new file, where is new file? A new file.txt. Can you see now? Can you see this is what we calculated? That is, the owner should have a read, write, execute. Group should have read and execute, while the others should have only the read permission. So this is what the numeric is all about. Now, for the symbolic, you could make use of these letters. So U stands for user, Y, G stands for group, O stands for others. So you could actually use the command chmod plus X. Let's try something like that. So let us try something like that. So let's say I want to give this particular welcome.txt now. I just want everybody to have execute permission. So I could say chmod plus X, then welcome. Now let us check it again. Now, if you look at the welcome, you see that everyone now have the execute XXX permission. So if I want to add other things to it, I could also say chmod plus wx, then welcome. Now, if you go back there now, discover that they have the execute permission. So that is what the file system permission is all about. So let's just we have to finish this today. Okay. So now we have some basic networking commands that can be used on Kali Linux. The first one is ifconfig. Unlike what they call it, unlike Windows, that it's ipconfig. If you want to check your network interface and also your IP address, then you could use IPA to list all IP addresses and interfaces. Then ping to ping a host, that is to send ICMP requests, that is a connectivity or error request to see if a particular network is actually active. Then you have netstart. This one displays network connections and routing tables. You have nmap. This is to scan a particular network for hosts and to discover hosts and ports that are open. Then trace routes. Trace routes displays the route packets. Displays the route packets take to reach the particular host. That is the route it takes to reach a particular host. Then we have dig. Dig is to perform DNS lookups. DNS lookups to query domain name information. That is, if you want to check the information of a particular domain, you could use the command dig. Then IP route shows or manipulates the IP routing table. Then we have host name, we have call, and we have widget. Now, widget is to actually get, if you want to download, it's a downloader to, if you want to download files from the web. So assuming you have the web, the file URL already, you just use widget, then put the URL, it will download the file for you. So let us try some of the commands. I'll be doing the rest later. Let's try some of the commands. So let's clear this. So let's say the first one is ifconfig, right? So now ifconfig, you can see it shows you your interface. That is, if you see my IP address here, then your your subnet mask, then your broadcast, the broadcast address that my network is using presently. So that is what the ifconfig does. Then another command that will not touch there. Say, okay, IPA. So IP-A. This one shows your IP address, and it also shows the interface you are using. Says I'm using ETH0, that is Internet 0. Then we have the ping. Now, ping is to check if a particular network or a particular address is active. So let's try and ping example.com. Now you see it's giving me, this is called an ICMP request. This request I'm getting now is called an ICMP response. So you see it's pinging, which means that the particular domain I try to check is actually active. You know, I told you on like the Windows, if you ping, it will only give you send you 4 requests. But here it will continue till you stop it. So to stop, use Control C. Now, I think to actually count or to actually give it, if I still remember the command, so ping, I think -C, or not sure, to tell it to, yeah, to tell it to give you only, yeah, that's the command. So if you want it to give you only 4, let's say I want to make it 6 or 5, I could just say 5, and the request will not be the response I will get will not be more than 5. Or let's say I want to ping this now. I want to ping this now, and I want it to save, just like the way Echo does. I want it to save into a file. So let me just say Echo ping this, and no, come in. Let me see. Let me just say, so now it saved the particular ping I did just now. It saved it into this ICMP. So if I check the ICMP now that I just created, can you see that this is what it's ping? So that's that about that. Then trace routes. Okay. On Windows, it is actually tracert. I think TRACERT. But yeah, it is trace route. So let me trace routes of example.com. So now it shows me how it's for me to actually get my response, the route my packet passed to actually respond to me. Now it took 30 ops. 30 ops means it went through 30 ops to actually get my response. That is what trace routes does. Which other command again? So you could also research other commands, because there are so many commands that we have out there. Then we have the dig command. We have the IP route. Okay, let's use dig command and the IP route. Okay, let's try that. So dig now, if I want to check some information about a particular domain, I could say just dig example.com. So it will give me information about that particular domain. Then the nmap also, nmap is to check. Let me use this. Let me use this public IP that it gave me here. So to copy on the, if you don't want to right click and start copying selection, the shortcut, okay, you can see the shortcut there. You have to use Control Shift plus C. It's not just Control C, especially when you're on the terminal. You have to use Control Shift plus C and Control Shift plus V to paste. Then let me use nmap to check. I think it will not work because I'm not using sudo. Sorry for taking your time. Well, you have to finish it because the next one has to do with Kali Linux security. So we'll go in depth into some other things there. We need to finish this one. With our time with this. So IP, was it IP routes? Yeah, IP routes. Now IP routes just shows you your, so this is the IP address I'm using presently. So this is what and this shows you the network address, which is /24, which is a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So that's that. So let us move forward. There are so many commands. You can just make research on your own, so we don't waste time here. Now, introduction to Bash scripts. What is Bash? Bash means born again shell. Now, it's a command line interpreter used in most Linux distributions. It allows users to interact with the file system, execute commands, and automate repetitive tasks using scripts. Now, a bash script is simply a file containing a series of commands that the system executes sequentially. So if you want to, like all the things we have been doing now, we created a user, we created a file, we did so many things so if you want to actually execute those things at once and you don't want to be repeating commands, we could actually make use of bash scripting. So now why learn bash scripting? Now to automating repetitive tasks, configuring systems efficiently, performing penetration testing, automation in Kali Linux, that is managing users, files, and processes, creating custom security tools. So this is how a bash script is like. So this hashtag and this, let me just show you what I mean. Like, so now let's clear this. So if I now, but if you want to create a bash file, it has to be a .sh file. So let me create a file. I can just nano. If I just nano and make a file, let's say bash test. So bash test.sh. If I just nano it, automatically, if the file does not exist, it should actually create the file. So I'll do this now. So if I want to type here, you start with that the hashtag and the exclamation mark. is known as shebang. That's what it's called. It's known as shebang. Then so we say shebang slash bin slash bash. That is what we have there. Then you can start your command. Let's use the one that we have here. So it says, okay, this is my comment, echo. All right. So it says hash. So when you use hashtag, it's just like a comment for those of you that are familiar with Python scripting. Now, what's Python scripting and Bash scripting? They actually have some similar things in common. So you should know that hashtag only means that you are creating a comment that you should not add it to your command line. So the comment now we say, let's say we want to um, welcome me. Let's say welcome me. Then to perform that command, we say echo welcome me. Now, to save this, you just like use Control X, then type Y, then enter. Now, run your bash scripting. First, you need to make it executable. Now, for you to make it executable, use the command ch. Now, let me list and show you something. Let me just list. Now, if you see a file that is bold like this, it means that that file is actually is an executable file. But if you see it like this, that is not bold, it means it is not executable. So to make that file, the file that we created now, to make it executable, where's the file? Okay, bash test. Which is it sh? So now maybe there was a mistake. I typed shy, so it's supposed to be .sh. Now we did not use the copy command. So I think copy is cp. So let's say I want to copy this. I want to copy this now. I want to copy this now into documents. So if I use the cp into documents, so let me change directory to documents. So let me list here. Can you see that it has been copied into documents? Now, if you want to move is mv. Now, mv could also be used to change the name of that file. So now let me go back to the one that we have in the one I have on my home. So I want to change because it's supposed to be .sh, not shy. That was a mistake. So I want to change it now. If I change it, I'll just say as if I want to move it. So I move this file, then, and I'll do this. So if I want to actually move it into another directory, I can just put the directory here, but I still want it to be where it is here, but I just want to change the name. So I say enter. So if I list now, you see that it has actually changed the name of the file for me. So we said to make this executable. So we say chmod plus x. It's supposed to be a C here. So say chmod plus x, then the bash test sh. Now, if I list now, you see that it is bold now too. It means it is executable. So for you to execute it, you just use a full stop and a slash. A full stop and a slash, then So you just use a full stop and a slash, then the file. So if I just click enter now, can you see the command we gave it is what it did? We just said it should echo welcome me. So let us try other commands. So now I can, if I want to edit it now, just nano it. So let's give it something like a variable. So let's just say, all we want it to do here is just to mention name. So I just say, uh, tell it to welcome. So I've given a variable, I've given a name, the variable Anthony. For those of you that are familiar with Linux, so if sorry, Python. So if I say welcome, I just want it to welcome my name. So instead of typing Anthony again, I can just use this. I just say name. We put exclamation there. Then I quote it. And I quote it. So let's save and let's see what it will do when we run the command. So can you see what it did? It said, welcome, Anthony. So let us try more commands like, so let's just edit it again. Let's edit it again. So we can do something like this. I can say is equal to we can make use of if statement. So if file exists, that is dash E. If file exists, that is the file that we have given the variable. If the file exists, If file exists, then an echo the file we can always test this. I'm just trying to show you how this is very effective. Exist and distribute. Yes. Echo. Also put the file. Yes. So what this command, what I'm just trying to achieve is if file my file is equal to etc as slash password. I said the etc file is where your some configuration files like your password are being saved. So now I want to say my file is equal to now the etc class password directory. Now I said if you check if a file exists and is readable, that is, if a file exists, then it should echo the file and the file name that I input exists and is readable. Now, else, if the file does not exist, it should tell me that the file, which is the file does not exist and is not readable. Then I finish that command, that is with the fi. Then else, echo the file does not exist. That is, if the file does not even exist at all, echo the file does not exists. So now let's see if this command will actually work, or let's just give it a try. So now let's run it. This. So can you see what it's telling me now? It's telling me that the file etc/pc exists and is readable. Because if I try to check the file now, let me say ls/etc/pas. So you can see, let me look for the password file here. For the password file here. You can see the password file here. It exists and it is readable. All right, so that's about that. What else is left here? Okay, I think the other thing is if you want to update your Kali, now use the command sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. So that's the command to do that. You could always try that. I don't want to do that now so that I won't waste much of our time. So you could try that on your own.